Hey YouTube, welcome back to EagleX TCG, and we are here for another Gundam card game video. This time we will be doing another Newtype Insight showcase. You guys responded very well to the first one, and I'm really happy that the idea kind of took a root in the community. So here we are again, this time with green-white Gundam Wing, and we're going to show you why this deck is played, how it was constructed, what parts of the meta kind of shaped it that way, and then we're going to talk about matchups. So I hope you guys are ready, and yeah, let's dive in. Make sure you leave a like on the video, comment with anything that I could do better when it comes to these sort of breakdowns, as well as your thoughts on this deck, the meta, whatever you want to do. And then if you really like this and want to see more Gundam card game content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, let's hop into it. All right guys, so we're back to a familiar page once again at Eggman Events, a pretty good information hub for wherever you may want to find details on, what topped, what performed, different pie charts, breakdowns, all that. But right now we are going to use it as a resource to look at some of these Wing Zero decks. So first we're going to go on ZTCG's 16th place 4-2 Gen Con Sunday event, and we're going to see how this one is built. Now, like I said, you're going to find that this deck is meant to drop these bombs such as Wing Gundam Zero and Wing Gundam, but you need to survive to get there, which is why you're going to see a pretty intense blocker core, which is where the white is going to come into play. So right here, we got 3 Zawarts, 3 Ilfris. Those entire purposes, the entire purpose of this, these two cards are to come down early game and stop you from getting ran over. Zawart will be able to take out most things. Zawart and Ilfrith will take out most things in the first couple turns that could swing into you. Zawart has a little bit more reach when it comes to its AP, but it will end up, having less HP to take hits. You've got Wing Gundam Bird Mode, which is part of your ramp core. You're just going to be able to get an EX resource to allow you to reach further and further up on both levels and cost. And then you have more of the blocker core with Ail Strike here, Perfect Strike. And then going into something that's part of the ramp, but it's also a bomb if you pair it with Duo, is going to be Gundam Death Scythe. Again, we're going to be breaking this down card by card, but I just want to give you guys a general layout of these decks first and foremost. You've got Wing Gundam and Wing Gundam Zero. These are pretty much your big boss units. These are guys that push the most weight in one way or another. And then this particular deck features the seed core, as I'd like to call it. So normally, at the very minimum, you're gonna have to build off of the backs of these two pilots, both Duo Maxwell and Hito Yui. Like I said back in my deck building video, you normally have 2 focal pilots per deck, and then you move outward from there. Sometimes decks can have just 1 focal pilot if they are extremely below to the ground body heavy, but most decks will have 2 focal pilots, and then every now and then you can incorporate a third one. And in this case, the third one is Kira, to be able to pair with Ail Strike, Perfect Strike, and sometimes just other things depending on what your needs are. Now, Underground Desert Base is a vanilla base with a 0-6 stat line, and this is just to basically provide a stat line that's going to be harder to punch through so you can buy yourself more time, all a part of the survival. And then you have Overflowing Affection. This is the white filter card that's going to allow you to get into your deck deeper and deeper, find these cards. And then speaking of getting into your deck deeper and deeper, you have the Path to Victory or Defeat in order to search. So this is how this one's looking, and shout outs to ZTCGs for making that finish. Now going down, let's look at another list. This one's done by Puyan, third, going 4-1 on another Gen Con event. And you can see this deck has dropped the seed package, but in exchange for dropping the seed package, you see both Zawart and Gundam Elfrith were put up to 4. You still have the Wing Gundam Bird Mode. This deck has the inclusion of Gundam Death Scythe, just the rare. Actually, is it a rare? Not sure if it's a rare. My bad. But you have the inclusion of Gundam Death Scythe. It might be just being uncommon in order to have another linking partner for Duo, because otherwise Duo just has 1 link and it's the LR Death Scythe. But at least now Duo has a couple more cards you can link with. Then you have the addition of First Contact to have a little bit more consistency. Now you have a total of 6 cards that on 3 resources you can activate to get some sort of ramp. And then this one also has the Unforeseen Incident. Unforeseen Incident is a very, very, very strong card if you have space for it. It's going to be able to turn a lot of things that people thought would be trades into just bad chumps on their part, where their unit dies and yours does not. So again, shout out to Puyon. Let's look at 2 more lists before we go down into the card breakdown. This one's done by Casey. 4-1 went 12th place. Going 4-1 and getting 12th is kind of rough, but this is the nature of a round, of an event that only has 5 rounds. As you can see, this person also does not run well, actually, wait, sorry. This person does run the seed package, but it's a condensed seed package, opting to not run perfect strikes, but instead run striker packs in order to come out and just make the blocker. This card right here, well, actually, yeah, just looking at it, because this is kind of a tech card more than anything, but you activate the effect, and main, if you have no Earth Alliance unit tokens in play, deploy 1 Sword Strike Gundam Earth Alliance that's going to be AP4 HP2 blocker, or 1 Launcher Strike that's going to be AP2 HP4, so same stats as Ilfrith. Or you can actually, no, that's pretty much it. But then on burst, if you have no Earth Alliance units tokens in play, you can deploy 1 Ail Strike Gundam, which is going to be AP4 HP2 and blocker. So that's actually pretty cool. However, I will say that being a level 4, you can't deploy it out as quickly as Ilfrith or Zawart. So you really just have to kind of use it, and it's not a body. Well, it's either way, and you're not a body in hand. It's not like you have combo power in this game. But this is interesting because it comes in a little later on your curve. The burst effect is pretty nice. The option to potentially burst a blocker from your life is actually pretty insane, and you kind of just at 2, never really counting on it, but it can happen. So I can see why it's teched in there. And then the last one we're gonna look at is, actually, we can look at 2 here. We can look at 2 here real quick. We'll look at this one right here, which is the Zawart. You see they still have the striker. They have the striker pack, the seed pack, but they also have the striker pack as the tech. So you can see this is a very similar build. Only difference is the addition of Peaceful Timbre, which is just going to say affect action during this battle. Your shield area cards can't receive damage from enemy units that are level 4 or lower. This can sometimes really get in the way of aggro decks, and it's here at 3. So you can kind of see that they were really trying to close the gate on these low to the ground aggro decks to survive to the late game for reasons we will talk about later. And then the last one we're going to do, and that's Tsutsumi. And the last one we're going to do is Ike, who also seemed to have gone pretty hard in a Bandai Japanese release event. And you can see here that we have the striker, or we have the seed pack, but seed pack is going to forgo perfect strike in order to include Freedom Gundam, which is a little greedy, I feel like, in these decks, but you do ramp, so you still can get up to here pretty easily, and he is a very, very thick blocker. So now we are going to talk about what the deck is supposed to do, and then we are going to go into the cards card by card so you guys can see exactly how this deck and why this deck was put together. Okay, so the purpose of this deck in this format, pretty much the way this deck is going to play is going to be how Wing Gundam 0, Wing 0 Custom end up fighting in their respective series. By standing on the battlefield and not doing much of anything until you've charged up your Buster Cannon, and then you fire and pretty much wreck anything in your path. That is essentially how this works. Realistically though, jokes aside, you are going to have yet another deck like the one we did yesterday that is going to not force you to have to choose between face and board. This deck has its pretty much biggest bombs essentially going for both at the same time. You are hitting shields while you're hitting units. You are putting a big body on board that has high maneuver that can also deal damage to a bunch of other bodies on board. But instead of the many transactions that layer up to the cool results that you will get in that blue-red ping deck, you are going to instead in this one have 2 phases: survive, ball out, in that order. You are literally trying to survive until you are above a certain amount of resources, and then just back to back boss monsters until your opponent folds under the pressure. So now what we're going to do is go in and look at these cards card by card so you guys can understand why this deck moves the way it does, and yeah, up your knowledge. So let's hop over to that section. So when we go into the cards, I'm gonna start with the boss cards, you know what I'm saying? So we've got the Wing Gundam from the starter deck. He's a level 6 4 cost, 4/5 stat line, and then he's got Breach 5, which is a very important part of his text, as well as the ability, the static ability that this unit may choose an active enemy unit with that is level 4 or lower as its attack target. This makes sense. Now, the reason why it's level 6 instead of level 5, because a lot of things just have one level above their linked pilot's cost, so that they can play both in the same turn, is that they want this to avoid Wing Zero's burn effect. You'll see this built into a lot of the cards meant to be played at the top end of this deck. However, going into this, you have essentially got the fact that with Breach 5, you're able to attack these units that are either waiting for a pair, waiting for a link, or just haven't attacked yet. And then you're able to not only destroy those units, but then you're able to deal 5 damage to the shield behind it, or the base behind it, eradicating anything in its path, and again, not forcing you to choose between units on board or shields in the back. So this card allows you to push towards victory on 2 fronts instead of 1. Now, again, because this unit can choose active mode units, nothing is really safe unless it comes at a higher grade. So unless you're playing kind of a boss monster, they're generally not going to be safe. You're going to be able to steamroll them, and this is what makes this card so strong. Also, when you pair it with Hito Yui, because of Hito Yui's natural stats and the effect given, this is going to become a 7/7, which means that you generally can get 2 to 3 attacks off with this guy if left unchecked, to just destroy somebody's unit and then destroy the shield or base behind it, unless it is a 6 HP base. Now, the crazy part about that in general is that 7/7 is such a high stat line that really you just kind of got to let Wing Gundam get off its first attack and then hope that you can play something big enough to chip it, or potentially change the damage in order to chip it out of the game, which is very rough. So once this card comes down, it's a high profile target, but the boss cards in the deck are all kind of high profile targets for the next card that we're going to get into, which just happens to be the Wing Gundam Zero. Now, the Wing Gundam Zero is a level 8 cost, 5/7 stat line, high maneuver so it can't be blocked, and then deploy, deal 3 damage to all units that are level 5 or lower. The thing about this deck that hits so hard, or this card that hits so hard, is that if you noticed, a lot of the format right now is easy and quick damage, and those cards generally have 2 to 3 HP, sometimes if you're lucky 4 in the cases of things like Ilfrith, which is more of a blocker than an early damage. But most of these things outside of the boss like units are going to be anywhere between 2, 3. There are tokens sometimes that even have 1 HP, and this card is going to wreck all of them. But the crazy part about this is that if your opponent gets out a Wing Gundam Zero and eradicates all of your small bodies, chances are if they are back at 8 resources the following turn, they can play a second one and just eradicate the rest of your field. Very few cards that are played in this format actually get over this level 5 threshold. Like in the mirror, yes, it's not going to be as reliable because most of your impactful cards are going to be, you know, Wing Gundam cards, like Wing Gundam cards, Death Sight, things like that. In the, you know, Freedom blockers, the Seed blockers, you're going to have cards like Freedom, which is going to dodge this. Unicorn in blue is going to dodge this. Sananju in red is going to dodge this. But in most cases, a lot of cards get hit by it, and if they don't get destroyed by the first one, they will most certainly get double tapped by the second one. And this makes this card just such a strong unit. Now, just like the Wing Gundam that we just saw, this is another card that doesn't force you to choose between shields or bodies. If you play this card and then you pair it or you link it with a Hito Yui, not only is Hito Yui going to bring this guy up to become a whopping 8/9. That is right, 8/9. You are also going to be able to wipe cards off the board while being able to swing unimpeded by blockers at your shields or bases on your opponent's side of the board. So this is actually pretty crazy because with a 9 HP stat and a like 8 AP stat, almost anything you swing into this is going to get destroyed. However, in most cases, you will not be one-shotting this body. It is very hard to one-shot this body. Very few cards can do that. And so that is going to be essentially the hardest part about facing this. Once this gets down, especially if it's paired with a Hito Yui, you almost have to race the Gundam Wing player because getting this off the board is going to take too many resources from you. So this just becomes a very, very, very big hassle. The other cool thing about this is that the way this deck is set up, if your opponent plays a Gundam Death Scythe and a duo into a Wing Gundam, into a Wing Gundam Zero with a Hito Yui on it, those cards don't get hit by this effect because they are level 6, which means that when you don't get rid of a threat off of a Wing Gundam Zero's board, you essentially let them clear your board and then still have threats of their own, completely reversing the tempo of what's going on. So the next card we're going to talk about, I think he just straddles the line between Boss Monster and Ramp Core, so I put him right here in the middle. This is a Gundam Death Scythe LR. He is a level 6 4 cost, and he has the stat line of 5/4. When paired, Operation Meteor Pilot, place 1 rested resource, and then this unit gains first strike for the turn, which means he will deal his damage before your opponent deals their damage, and that's important. The linking pilot is Duo Maxwell, and the thing about this card is if you play him on curve, you play him out, you play duo, you're going to go up on a resource. But because you have first strike and you're now a 6/6 due to duo stats of +1/+2, you can now aim this guy at whatever's turn rested that has 6 AP or less, or 6 HP or less, and attack it. You will deal your damage first, ending it, but you will not have your Death Scythe touch, and now the onus is on your opponent to deal with your Death Scythe. This makes a very, 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 very nice exchange of advantage for the Gundam Wing player, and that's what makes it so strong. You are ramping, and he's essentially a point and click removal until HP goes over 6, which makes this once again a card that does multiple things at the same time. You do not have to choose, and that is going to be the best part about this card. So the next card we have here, moving further into ramp, is going to be the Wing Gundam Bird Mode. This is a level 3/3 cost 2/2 on the stat line. Deploy, place 1 EX resource. Now, placing this EX resource is important because in this game, your EX resource also counts towards your level. So when you go second and you have the EX resource, you're starting the game out with level 2. You have the resource and you have the EX resource that you started the game off with for going second, but you're starting at level 2, which makes your curve a little different. So activating a card like this is going to bring you up to a higher total for your level. However, you do have to be careful because I have seen some people get got by having like 3 EX resources, playing out Wing Zero, and then going down to 5 resources, and then, you know, next turn they go up to 6 and they didn't have the duo Death Scythe to follow up. So really the turn just kind of died. They didn't really get to do anything, just play out some weenies, and it wasn't as impactful as you would like it to be. So just make sure you kind of notice that. But yeah, placing out 1 EX resource is really going to help you. If you like, for instance, let's say you're at 3 natural resources, right? And then, or better yet, let's say you're even at an EX resource and you have 3 natural resources. So you're at a level 4, but you have 2. You can actually do something like play out Wing Gundam, get your EX resource, putting you up to what, 2 EX resources and 3 normal resources. And then the following turn, you go and you get another resource. So you have 4 natural resources, right? But you have, so you're technically on turn 4, but then you have 2 EX resources. You can use those 4 real resources to play out Death Scythe, and then you can use one of your EX resources for duo to trade one of those EX resources for a normal resource. This is like one of those momentum plays where you start trading, you start building up your resources, you start building up your trading your EXs for normals, and you eventually arrive at like 8 to 9 hard resources faster. And this is the laddering that you really want to do. Plus, this Hito Yui being Hito Yui's link, you can put Hito Yui on this and go up to be a 5/4. And as a 5/4 in Wing Gundam Bird Mode, you can bust up most bases, and most guys will, I mean, they have to swing at you with a kind of meaty card, like a Rizal, something with a 4 stat to actually take this. And the thing is, in most cases, they're going to lose the body that they swing on this with, because 5/4 is nothing to scoff at. That is an unpaired Kshatriya. Like, that's a pretty big body. So now we're going to go over to the next card. last part of the ramp core, and that is going to be first contact. Not in every deck, but I do think it rounds out things nicely. And on top of that, the fact that while it doesn't create a body like bird mode, it will create a hard resource, and that's going to be better for a couple of reasons, but it's going to be worse because once again you're not making a body. So first contact having a level 3 cost and making a real resource does have its niche. You're gonna have to play around to see which one you like more. I think lists without first contact are technically more greedy, and I think lists with first contact are more consistent, but the greedy deck only has to pop off 5 times in a 5-round best of 1 event for you to be the champion. So look, it is what it is. So now we're going to talk about the pilots, and the first pilot we have here is Hito Yui. Hito Yui is a level 4 1 cost. Of course, got the burst, add this card to your hand, and then the important part about him is that he has the effect that during link he's going to give the unit +1 AP +1 HP. So that means that when you put him under Wing Gundam bird mode, Wing Gundam, or Wing Gundam 0, he is going to be giving +3/+2 as a stat line, which is huge. He is just a stat rock. He is basically just saying that he is Himothy and that the Gundam can do more damage and take more damage while he is in it. So that's pretty much what you got going on for this guy. It's nothing too crazy, but he is just a omega stat rock. That's just pretty much what he do. Now the other pilot we got here is actually going to be Duo Maxwell, and Duo Maxwell is another level 4 1 cost burst, add this card to your hand. He gives the opposite lineup of +1/+2, but he has the during link this unit's AP cannot be reduced by enemy effects. Unfortunately, there's not much he links with yet, but we do have the ability to put him under Death Scythe, and the cool thing about that is if White is trying to engage with him, White cannot lower his AP. That means this guy cannot be unforeseen incidented, this guy cannot be Kira piloted, this guy dodges a lot of effects from White, and so if they want to attack in a Death Scythe, they got to take that massive 6 AP stat to the face. They can't just soften it and then, you know, get rid of him. So that's going to be something good going for him. Between these two, you pretty much link with everything you need to. Duo is almost exclusively for your Death Scythes, but after you do use Death Scythe one time, you can probably just hold one duo in hand if you see it, just to have that point and click destruction if you need it. Otherwise, the duos can be put on other things just to give them that HP, especially because of another card we're going to talk about in a second. But then you have the Hito, which is again a massive stat rock. He allows your Wing Gundams to attack the first turn they come down. Given the kind of cushion that they give to your board, Wing Zeros don't necessarily need to attack the turn they come down, they just need to come down. But if you have the Hito Yui and you want to get in that attack the turn it happens, there you go, buds. Now the card that actually holds it all together like glue, like cement between bricks, is going to be the Path to Victory or Defeat. A lot of people were kind of clowning on this card, not sure if it should be there, but I think that with the fact that you need Duo with Death Scythe, you need a card that can just pick up either of them. Because of the fact that you might need to have the Hito Yui and the Wing Gundam at the same turn to really start impacting the board the turn it comes down, you need a card like this. And it only costs 1, and by the time you're well into your ramp, you're going to be able to use the Path to Victory or Defeat to good effect. So, level 5, 1 cost, main, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. We may reveal 1 Operation Meteor / G-Team unit / pilot card amongst them and add them to your hand. Then return the remaining cards randomly to the bottom of your deck. Yeah, this is the unit card or pilot card. Usually cards that search just say unit cards, so it's very special that we get to see a unit / pilot. Very, very, very good card. Very, very good at what it does, and I think it is absolutely crucial to keeping this deck together. Now moving on from that, I'm going to start talking about the blocker core, and the first card we have up here is the Zawart. Now the Zawart is a level 2/2. Very important that it is a level 2, because that means that you don't need the EX resource by going second to play this guy on turn 2. Or sorry, on turn 2. You just need to actually have it. Normally a turn 2, you're running a lot of level 3/2 costs that are going to force you to have the EX resource or play a 2 cost on turn 3, but this guy comes down directly on curve and you love him for it. Now a 2 HP stat does allow him to get pretty badly 2 for 1. Or sorry, like just swept off the board if somebody has something like Marita and Kshatriya. But in most cases, this guy is going to be an annoying blocker. While he may die the moment he blocks, his 3 AP stat is generally going to take whatever he got, whatever he blocked with him in that early game, sometimes even mid game. Like this guy could block a Rizal and trade. Both things die. Whereas when it comes to the next card that we're going to talk about, the Gundam Ilfrith, she has a bit of a stat line difference. I say she like it's not a robot, but this is a level 3 2 cost, and Gundam Ilfrith has been a menace to society since its reveal. We all know how strong this stat line is as a 2 cost blocker that basically has a 2-4 stat line. You kind of have to warp the format around it because it changes up how the early game goes, but these 2 blockers are going to make sure that they do their best to stop aggro from immediately bullying you out of the game. Not only blocking, but sometimes in most cases taking the early game units with them. Now, the next part that we're going to talk about when it comes to this deck is going to be the Seed Core. And when it comes to the Seed Core, I do think that this is the better way to play the deck. I do like the ability to have even bigger blockers that can't just auto be rested by small effects like gun cannon. They will take armors. I like these sort of blockers. And the first one we have here is going to be the Perfect Strike Gundam. Perfect Strike Gundam is going to actually be a level 5 3 cost. Deploy, choose one enemy unit with 1 HP, return to the owner's hand. 4/4 stat line, Earth Alliance trait, but for this particular deck, you're really only linking it with Kira. Now, the cool thing about Perfect Strike Gundam is that Perfect Strike Gundam is going to be able to bounce with that 1 HP threshold, meaning that it can get a lot of tokens out of the way. And when you bounce a token, it has no place to go, so it essentially just fizzles. So it's a very, very good removal on those low to the ground decks that are spawning Sharzaku tokens, people that may be experimenting with Korska base, all sorts of things like that. Very, very, very good card, solid stat line, and it only goes up when you pair it with Kira, making it a 6/5. Now, the next card we have here is going to be the Ale Strike Gundam, another part of the Seed Core, and this is just the souped up version of that, really. It's a level 5 4 cost. Ale Strike Gundam just has blocker, and then when paired level 4 or higher pilot, choose one enemy unit with 4 or less HP, return to their hand. It can get a lot of stuff out of the way, only links with Kira, and it has a 4/4 stat line just like the Perfect Strike. Now, I do need you guys to understand, because all these blockers are level 4 or lower, you need to be careful about what you do when you resolve your Wing Gundam Zeros. When you play your Wing Gundam Zero, you could be annihilating the HP that's left of your Ale Strike, your Perfect Strike, your Ilfrith. You will straight out destroy your own Zawarts. So when it comes to this, make sure that you're getting the most value out of your cards. Swing with your Zawart into a body, you know, to just pick that up before playing your Wing Zero. If any of your blockers that have 4 HP are damaged, make sure they get their swings off into other bodies or into shields before you play Wing Zero and lose them for good. But yeah, you really just want to make sure you maximize your value, because them being under level 6 means they are open season for that 3 burn damage when you tap 8. Next card on our list is going to be Kira Yamato, and Kira Yamato is a level 4 1 cost pilot. He is the supplementary pilot, the auxiliary pilot to Duo and Hito if you're playing the Wing deck with the Seed Core in it. But yeah, basically very, very strong card. On attack, choose one enemy unit, gains, or yeah, it gets minus AP2. I read that completely backwards. It gets AP -2 during this battle. And yeah, then you've got the +2/+1, so pretty solid stat line. He's going to be able to push a lot of damage and make trades more, you know, just palatable for you because of that -2 AP. Now we're moving on to the base. You got the Underground Desert base. This is generally the only base that's used in these decks right now, mainly because it can come out very early, being a level 2 1 cost, and so that helps a lot against aggro. But on top of that, it has a 0/6 stat line, making him very, 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 very good, making it very, very good to just stand the test of time. And 5 and 6 is a very different threshold. Don't let anybody tell you different. 5 base coming out of life, or coming out of shields in the last swing, could still be ran over and moved through. 6, not as easy, and a lot of people will tell you how annoying it is to have that happen to you, but this is a very, very, very good card. And for this deck that just wants to stay alive, there could not be a better base. And the last card we have here is a no-brainer, Overflowing Affection. It really is just draw consistency, technically filtering your looting. You're drawing 2, discarding 1, big break even, but you're digging into your deck 2 separate cards. and on top of that you are going to only have to pay 1 for it. So those are the cards in the deck, and that is why they are in the deck. There's a lot of cool things and interactions that we are going to see as I make more and more videos for this. And yeah, let's move into the matchup portion of this video. All right, y'all, there are gonna be some unfortunate truths when we talk about this particular matchup, because it's not as open and shut when it comes to what's good against it and what's bad against it as a lot of you guys may actually think. The funniest part about Wing Gundam as a deck is that I truly believe Wing Gundam does not have particularly bad matchups or good matchups. The kind of big part about a Wing Gundam deck is how you curve out. If you open up all of your boss pieces early and not enough of your blockers or any bases, you will get folded by Cyber Newtypes. Well, it's blue red ping. You'll get folded by that. You'll get folded by Earth Federation 1 year aggro. Half these names, man, half of these names. You get folded by Xeon aggro. You get folded by a lot here, just a lot. Like, let's go into Ben Ferris's list again. Again, shout out to the boy, the man, in fact. When you see this, right? Half these cards will tear you up. They will get played, they will go sideways. But let's say you play a 6-cost base. All of a sudden, half these cards are not doing the job anymore, even with backup like Vesalius. You play out a card like Rezel, and then in response, the Gundam Wing player plays out Zawart. Now they've got to figure out how to get around Zawart, which they do have ways. You can tap it by linking with gun cannon. There's a lot of ways you can do these things. However, you do get checked because the Rezel and the Zawart will trade. You know what I mean? If you draw all of your blockers and some of your bases, like a base or two going in, you're going to breeze this early game. And then the hard part is once you get to 8 resources, you play Wing Gundam. Look at this. Dead, 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 dead. Sorry, dead, 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 dead without pair, dead without pair, dead without pair. And then you start getting things that live. But then you play the second one, super dead, super dead, super dead, 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 and dead. So yes, if Wing Gundam can last long enough in the game, they will undoubtedly come through and just ruin the board presence of this. Wing Gundam's able to swing over most of this and not take much damage, and then swing over a lot of this, still live and deal breach. It's wild. Going back, let's look at another list. Freedom blockers. This, I will say, is probably the closest thing we can say to a good matchup. Actually, I'll take it fully back. This is the good matchup for the deck. Why? Because this deck doesn't really have fast-paced aggression. You're going to be playing out cards, but you have blockers early that you can sort of go sideways with, like Elfrith, not Zawart. You have the Rezel that you can go sideways with. You have things like Strike Rouge you can go sideways with, Gundam. But for the most part, you're playing at a speed to where it's very easy for Gundam Wing decks to stabilize, ramp, get on board, and start playing cards that are just better than your cards. Cards with breach that'll run over these blockers, cards like Wing Zero that'll destroy pretty much all of these front runners and then take half the health of most of these cards. And then if any of these were damaged, any of these blockers were damaged prior, they're just getting destroyed by Wing Zero. But again, if Wing Zero hits twice, the only card in your deck that does not get folded in half is Freedom Gundam with an actual pilot under it. So here we are again at this weird crossroads. But it's just that you're likely going to get up to that wing turn comfortably with the freedom blockers. Wing Zero, the mirror is kind of rough. It's not exactly, in my opinion, like the most skillful mirror. It is kind of who curves out the best, because just like going back to this list, if your opponent draws mad blockers but no Death Scythe and Duo, no Wing Gundam, maybe no Path to Victory Defeat to curve out, and they just keep playing blockers, and they, they hard play out their air strikes, and they're just trying to get up naturally. And then you, on the other hand, you see your Wing Gundam, you see your Death Scythe, and you start playing Wing Zeros, you're folding them. So realistically, like mini mirrors, who draws better is going to be a huge factor, but it really will kind of be rough. Now, just like you have this deck, the white blue kind of matchups being what could be seen as the better matchups for them, you have some of these low to the ground aggro matchups that can be considered worse. Now, when it comes to this one, this particular list, I would say this is actually probably still okay for Wing. You do have some high maneuver to get around in the form of G Fighter, but a lot of these guys, no link, 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 and that's going to actively allow you to set up blockers. That's going to allow you to set up bigger cards in general, and then you can just safely ramp and get up to Wing Zero, and Wing Zero wipes. This deck barely has cards that survive Wing Zero, so it's kind of rough. But on the other end, when you want to go over to a deck like this Xeon Aggro, right? This is a deck that I keep getting caught by the same link, bro. I keep getting caught by the same link. Okay, so this is more of a deck that can do a little more damage, because you're going to come in so hot and heavy, and outside of because of the Char Zaku 2 and Char plus Char, because of how much high maneuver you have in the deck, anything paired with Char is high maneuver. Siege Ploys can get blockers out of the way, and then you have G Fighter with Amro. It's also going to be high maneuver. So with all these high maneuver cards, or the ability to use G Fighter to turn an existing gun tank or a Gundam on the board to high maneuver, you have a lot of aggro, and then you have ways to jump over the blockers that may come out as a last-ditch effort to stabilize. So this can be a really hard deck for Wing, but seeing that this has no draw cards, you are really at the mercy of how you top deck. And I think that is the one thing that the Gundam Wing decks have going for them in spades, is that you really do have game versus everything in the game, but you do have some matchups that are slightly harder or slightly easier, or maybe even a little bit harder, like the blue-green with a lot of high-mo. But the thing is, if you can successfully, if you draw in sequence, if you draw blockers and a base, and then you slide into your ramp, into your bombs, you are likely taking that game. And that is why the deck is so popular, because it really does have the ability to pull out that power against any deck. But on the flip side, you just see too much of your late game and not enough of your blockers. These aggro decks will run through you easily. So that is the risk reward that you were taking. So now let's go over to the conclusion for this video. So all in all, I think we can all agree that Wing Gundam is a very, very powerful deck. I think that it is going to be around for quite some time. There's also a lot of cards that we don't have for the archetype, you know, like we don't have, for instance, a Tall Geese 2. We don't have anything like an Epion. We don't have Ultron. We don't have Death Scythe Hell. So yeah, we're probably getting support in the future. So I think this deck is going to be around for a long time. How it will evolve, however, is the main question. So I'm super excited. I think that this deck is a powerhouse in this format, and it definitely has the popularity vote. A lot of people love Gundam Wing because they love Gundam Wing. However, I do think that this deck does have exploitable holes. It's just kind of its saving grace that the decks that can best take advantage of the early game generally don't have the same levels of consistency that this deck has, because of Overflowing Affection and the Path to Victory or Defeat, or, you know, decks that can run Overflowing Affection and Show of Resolve. So this is definitely a cool deck to pick up. Just understand that your first battle is first and foremost struggling to survive, or, you know, maybe just surviving if you drew really well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, I'm looking for any feedback. I hope this video helped you understand green white wing better, and I hope you guys are excited for this series because I got a couple more to go before we're done, as long as you guys want to see them. So yeah, like that video if you like the content, subscribe if you want to see more Gundam card game content in the future. My Fusion World fans, I will be doing more of that. We are getting deeper and deeper into spoiler season. And then last but not least, I want you guys to go down in the description and check out the links. There you have cool stores like Hyper Beam cards based in Tijuana, as well as Mystic TCG based in Missouri. I'm talking a million miles an hour, that's my bad. But they both sell the Gundam game, they both hold tournaments there, and if you're ever in the area, stop by, check them out, maybe even try to play in some of their local events. Last but not least, you've got EagleX's weekly webcam tournaments. They're on Wednesday nights. Go over there, have a good time, play for prizing, and Eggman also has events as well. Dude, there's so much room for the Gundam game community to grow. So yeah, thank you guys, and I'll see you later. Peace.